course, we don't only read other people's work, we have to read our own work, and sometimes that's the hardest reading to do. I personally find it hard to read my own work, largely when I've been working for a long time or something and I'm sick to death of it, and I'm sure other people have that experience too. But also, you're very close to your own work and you're very invested in it, and sometimes it's hard to see your own flaws and your own weaknesses and your own strengths. But I think it's an important skill in our reading arsenal to know how to read our own work. So very quickly, a few key tips about reading your own work. One, I think the most important thing is to get some distance from your work. It's no good having just finished writing it and being completely involved in trying to develop the ideas and wrestling with how things are all going to fit together and then think you're going to read it with an eye to how well it's written. You need to put it away. So put it away for as long as you can, right? Even overnight is terrific. So put it in a bottom drawer, forget about it. And then try to read your own work when you're really fresh. Give it the same respect that you would other people's work. And I find that this helps an awful lot. The other thing that you need to do is you need to remember now you're reading in a different mode. You're not reading to be thinking about the argument, but more so much about how you've presented it in your work. And it helps if you can have next to you a list, perhaps, to keep them in the forefront of your mind about your own writing flaws. Now, I know I love to use the word indeed, right? So I might put that down as something I want to watch. How many times have I used the word indeed and how have I used it? I also like to look at the connections between paragraphs and the flow, and I know I have a tendency to long sentences that sometimes get out of control, so I want to continue to focus on that. So they might be the things that I'm looking at my own work to read. Now here too, as elsewhere, you have to make a decision about, are you going to read your work in hard copy or are you going to read it on the screen? Now I read my own work with a view to improving it and editing it in both ways. So I would read on screen for what I would call the micro details of comma placements. Have I, used my semicolons correctly? Do I use the word indeed too often, because I can do a search for it and then I can see where I've used it. So I would do that on the screen because it's much more efficient for me. But I also think that there's value in reading your work in hard copy in front of you when you're trying to think about the logic and the sense of your particular piece of work. What I have here is a paper that is a manuscript of mine. It has been accepted for publication and it's come back now for the final read through. So there is opportunity for me to make small changes to this, nothing big. So this is an example of how you might read a piece of well-developed work to try and make sure it is as clear as it can be. So I haven't seen it for ages, which is great because it means I'm reading it as if it's foreign to me, which allows me to see certain errors in it that I might not have seen at the time. Another trick I think that you can do when you're reading your own work is to read it aloud. And that allows you to see how things flow or how awkward various elements of it get. So in reading this, I would go through it slowly, I would read it. I'm not going to try and change the argument, I'm just looking for elements of clarity. And as I said, these words indeed, there it is straight away on that page. But I've already checked, there's not too many. So when I am reading, for example, reading this particular piece, I got to this sentence, and this is what happens when you read your own work for editing. You can end up right down at the level of the sentence. You're trying to think very specifically about that. So I have a sentence here, which I don't like anymore. And the reason I can see I don't like it is because I haven't looked at the work for a while and because I'm looking at these clarities. So what I might do in this sense, of course, is I'm going to move this over here to clarify the meaning, and then I'm going to go away and think about what the heck did that clause mean? And now I'll try to just see if it's necessary and unpack it in that way. But the important thing is, when you're reading your own work, that you want to be a critic. You don't want to be overly critical, but you also want to do this from a position of distance, and you want to know exactly what it is you're looking for.